This is the Eachine EF-01 all-in-one camera and vTx all included one. We've got many of these cameras that have been coming out recently. I went ahead and pre-ordered this one. Let's see if I can get it out of the box maybe here, huh? I've had it out of the box. Why am I struggling so much? Okay, so this one has the metal caser on it. You may have, I believe it's metal. Sounds like metal. It's folded like metal. And I'm not sure why they would put these tabs on here. I don't see that for any purposes I might have for flying micro quads. I'm guessing that they've got a quad coming out that's probably going to use this camera, and they mount it via those, which again wouldn't be a good choice because then we've got no angle that we can put on the camera unless it mounts into a device that allows us to give angle, like a little bit like how the Tarot cameras are mounted. But let's weigh these up. Let's just compare these two that I've got handy here. Let's start with the 797 5.1, 8.5. So pretty dramatic in the micro world, the weight difference. So there's got to be a feature that compels us. But before we jump too far, we need to note that the lobes are the same. The dimensions are slightly different, and this one, than 797, has a more flexible coax on it, so it's probably going to offer more protection for the lobes. This one is quite stiff. I mean, you can just look at the difference and see that the size of the coax is much more substantial, and I think that's a miss. I think they need to go with something even more flexible than what we see on the 797. But let's take the case off and we'll weigh it again. We got the case off, and somebody had their Wheaties the day they put my screws in, because I had one that I think it was really tightened down. I was caught off guard by that, but you can see possibly I marred this up a bit trying to get it out, but I did finally get it out. Let's see, the case doesn't seem to weigh much, but let's take another weight. 6.5 grams, so the case and the back plate was about 2 grams. Not much. And something else, look at how much glue is on here. And I'm not sure that glue is going to be able to come off or not. Let me give it a little go here. So it doesn't seem substantial. So you can see I've got the glue off now, or at least a good portion of it. There's a little bit of residual glue down here. But what I wanted to see was, can we turn this? Boy, that seems really solid. You can also see down here, hopefully that shows up, it's shiny. That looks to be more glue. It's almost as like this is just a barrel, and then we have our lens, and then we have the sensor. Yeah, that's, I don't want to get too harsh on it, but we've got our button, long press to change band, short press to change channels, and then we've got our LEDs lining up right over here, and then we've got our power connector that came with it right here. Well, let's hook it up and see if it works. Alright, I got everything set up, made a little wiring harness for this. Got a little single cell voltage or a battery here. Let's plug it in, see what we get. See the lights on the back here, pretty easy to see, and we've got our image here. Looks like we've got a bit of fisheye, but it is a super wide angle camera, and it appears to be pretty well in focus as far as this depth. And holding this camera, I can feel it warming up in my fingers as well. So the next thing we need to do is take it outside. Let's do that. Alright, we're going to get started by walking out of my little cave where I do all this work. Give you a little sample of what it's like inside as we walk through the basement and up the stairs. Like a lot of the CMOS cameras that we see these days, it handles light changes fairly well for what they are, you know, little inexpensive cameras. We can tell the fisheye there, so we've got a really wide angle field of view. The fisheye isn't terrible, but you can definitely notice it. You see where the entryways are kind of bowed out.
straight lines vertically just aren't all that straight. They're a little bit rounded. Head back towards the back door, and we're going to go outside, take a little walkabout here. So the focal length on this camera seems alright. You can, in the distance, you can still make out objects, and I don't have any real troubles with how it looks close. When items get near that edge, they kind of start to warp there. You can tell definitely with those posts on the pergola, the fisheye effect. We're going to walk over to a spot where we get quite a bit of sun out as it starts to settle. Get right in the sun and then kind of lean the camera away. We're going to do this one other time at the other end of the yard. Just kind of give you an idea of when you're flying into the sun, if you turn away, how quickly it's going to recover. Looking into the darker areas of the yard. Back into the sunlight again, obviously. Colors are good. The grass, well, the sod that we had placed this summer is nice and green, and you can tell where we haven't had the sod placed because it's brown. When I walk up to this post, the camera is about 10 inches away from the post, but it looks like it's a couple feet away. That gives you an idea with your field of view and the distance it kind of misrepresents. So we can tell when we get the sky in there that everything else becomes pretty dark, and that's pretty typical of these CMOS cameras. But we're going to do the same test we did in the middle of the yard by sticking it right in the sun and then kind of leaning it away and out. So it gives us an idea of the image clarity that we're going to have. Let's head back inside.
Okay, so we've seen how it performs outside. We've weighed it. We've looked at the stiffness of the antenna. We've seen the LEDs and how they operate. Now we need to find out, does this one work as well as others where it doesn't need a power regulator in order to have a clean signal? So I've wired up an extra long lead so I can get this out away from this little favorite picnic quad of mine, a Picnic 120 efficiency frame. And let's plug it in and we'll rev it up and see what happens. Okay, now this is going to be a bit tricky because I don't want this to fly away, but I want to rev it up so you can see this. Let's put the monitor in the middle. Hopefully you got a good picture there. I'm going to hold this down with my left hand. So we arm. Not good. Okay, so you saw it. It had lines across the front, so the power regulation that they have built into this isn't strong enough in order to keep that from happening, so other cameras perform better in that regard. And I got one more thing I wanted to talk about before we let this go. So let's clear out here a bit. I'm going to disconnect this so we can talk about it. So outside it looked pretty good. Looked like it did a decent job looking into dark areas as well as light areas. I was a little bit surprised by that compared to other cameras. But it's got a little bit of an odd configuration here with these ears on it. It's got an exceptionally long nose compared to other things. Maybe that's a good thing for your installation if you want to get the lens out away from your props or something. But it's substantially longer than the standard dimensions of these cameras. But they have this connector put on backwards. And that bothers me. It bothers me a great deal because every lead that you use, if it's not their lead, which this is their original, if it's not their lead, you're going to have to depin any connector you use in order to plug it in there. Well, not any. If you have the standard wiring on your connectors, you're going to have to take them out and put them back in reverse order. Let me get a sample here. Well, we can just use this camera as a sample. So if I line up this to plug in, you see where the wires are? Black is to red, and red is to black. That's no good. And all they had to do was put this connector on the other way. I have no idea. Am I wrong about that? Is that all they had to do is just turn it over? There's only 2 pins. Yeah, all they had to do is turn this connector over when they manufactured. I have no idea why they would do that. I can't think of any reason behind it. Anyways, so the camera's almost twice as heavy as the 797. The coax on it is quite a bit stiffer, so it's less friendly to crashes if it's exposed to that. It seemed to do a pretty good job with low and dark and sun outside. I think that was possibly its one redeeming factor. The soldering on there doesn't look great. The nose sticks out. I just don't know why you would buy this right now. I can't think of a reason why we should pay for these right now. Unless you have a specific need that you need a longer lens. Maybe you're going to tuck this all in behind something and you need the longer lens to stick out so you don't see so much of your frame or whatever craft you're going to put it in. But I honestly can't think of a reason why you would buy this. It's pretty negative, but I think it's so simple that you just follow what they have done and others have done. But it seems like they tried to do something different, and they got a few things just really wrong about this, in my opinion. Of course, you know, take this, look at it for what it is, and maybe it fits an installation you've got perfectly. Maybe. But for me, I'll probably use this as a backup camera for some extreme cases. What I can do, I have another of the Eachine cameras coming that looks more like this, but it doesn't have the PCB. Let me get a pointer. It doesn't have the PCB sticking up here. That's actually the coax is soldered down below. I believe that one also has an actual LED that reads the values of the channel, like A, B, C, not actually C, but, and the numbers. So that's kind of the difference. So that should be arriving relatively soon. And then what I can do is I can set these all 3 up on a board and walk them around the yard, do some sun and dark comparisons, and we can do a shootout, so to speak, between these 3 cameras, these 2 and the 1 more. But as far as this little guy, he's a pass for me. I'll keep it in the little storage container and maybe use it down the road when I get desperate. But you know, with micros, you want to stay light. There's no reason for me to use this right now. If you have any questions or comments, leave those in the section down below. I appreciate you watching all the way to the end if you did. And if you have a reason that compels you to buy one of these, let me know. Maybe I'm just not thinking wide enough. It's just hard for me to recognize where this would be of use. And with the reverse polarity, that's a big mistake. I mean, it's not a complete failure, but I just can't get over how simple a thing that is and how big a deal that is that they didn't get that right. So, questions, comments, let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching.